In my last video, we talked about gypsy cops, officers who leave a trail of misconduct and somehow keep getting hired in new departments. A lot of you had strong reactions. Some of you have seen this firsthand. Others connected it to bigger questions about culture, parenting, and what we even expect from law enforcement in this country. Hey everybody, this is John Choice, back on Blue on Blue. I wanted to start with the fact that the last video resonated really well. It was on gypsy cops. So I guess you could say this is, what, number 2? I'm gonna start with the comments that were made in the last video, really thought-provoking comments, and then we're going to discuss real world, what could actually work in a real world framework. Our first thing came up in several comments. The idea that we need a national database or registry to keep gypsy cops from moving silently from one department to another. CBP 69 Photobug wrote, "John, you are spot on. I have seen how these gypsy cops slip through the cracks and devastate a department. We need a nationwide database for law enforcement for sure." This is coming from someone who's seen the damage from the inside. When a problem officer leaves one department without a clear record of what they did, they can show up somewhere else looking like a clean hire, and the new department has no idea what they're really getting into. In theory, a national registry, well, it sounds simple. If an officer has sustained misconduct, especially serious use of force issues, integrity violations, or criminal conduct, well, their name goes into a system. Any department during a background check can see that before making a hiring decision. The benefits are obvious. You're closing the door on someone who's already proven that they shouldn't be in this profession in the first place. You're protecting smaller agencies that might not have that funding for deep background checks. And you reduce the risk of repeating another tragedy with another jurisdiction. But there are real challenges. Who runs the registry? Is it federal? Is it state-based with shared data? What counts as serious enough to be listed? And how do you protect due process and avoid turning it into a weapon for politics or settling personal grudges? One of you said, a national register wouldn't solve all the problems out there, but it would be a start. That's exactly how I look at it. It's not a magic bullet, but it's a tool. If it's designed with clear standards, safeguards, and real consequences for agencies that fail to report. Here's the bottom line. A national, or at least a deep nationally based system, can assist in stopping some of the worst cases. But it only works if all of the policing agencies are honest about the people within their ranks. And if we're honest about the fact that some of the people within our ranks should never wear a badge again. Another big idea you raised was state licensing boards for officers, similar to how we license teachers, nurses, or other professionals. At Ryan K100 said, "We need state licensing boards for cops with interstate sharing. There are many reasons why a cop needs to lose his license and never be a cop again." I think this hits on something different. Right now, in many places, being a police officer is really tied to a job that's specific to your department, but not always to a formal license that can be revoked in a way that every other agency has to respect. If you had a strong state license or state licensing with clear standards and defined reasons for decertification, it becomes a lot harder for a gypsy cop to hop around or to cross a state or county line and just start fresh again. In my view, a realistic near-term reform looks less like a big federal database and more like a stronger state level licensing, plus mandatory sharing of decertification across the board, and serious misconduct data across state lines, sharing that information. And we're really talking about sharing that information between the states. Of course, it's not as flashy, but it's definitely doable. And it hits right at the heart of the gypsy cop issue. We got to stop these people from just picking up and starting all over again after they've left a lot of calamity and tragedy in their wake. I think you'd agree with that. Several of you zoomed out and looked at this from a much wider angle. You weren't just talking about hiring systems. You were talking about home life, education, discipline, or the overall direction of our society. One comment argued that when discipline, honor, and integrity stop being taught at home and reinforced in schools, you end up with young adults who lack direction and accountability. And some of those people end up in positions like policing that really demand exactly those traits. Look, as someone who's worked in law enforcement and now teaches criminal justice, I can tell you this: by the time someone applies to be a cop, you're not just reading a resume. You're looking at 18 to 25 years of character formation. Home, school, peers, choice, all of it. Background investigations, reference checks, field training programs, FTO programs are supposed to catch or flag the red spots, or red flags, if you will. These are supposed to be the red flags, but they're not perfect. If the culture is only to put a warm body in a seat in a uniform, we've already failed. Corners get cut. If supervisors don't want the headache, they tend to look the other way rather than address those red flags, those warning signs. So yes, systems matter, registries, licensing, policies matter, but culture matters too. In the home, in the school, and inside the police departments. If we ignore that, no amount of paperwork will fix the underlying problems and issues. Another theme you raised was trust and the cost of failure. Some of you made it clear taxpayers should not be forced to pay for corrupt officers who endanger their communities. That comment said, in essence, if you're a corrupt officer, the community shouldn't be stuck funding your paycheck and your mistakes. I get that frustration. When you see stories after stories of a police officer with misconduct problems, problems on the department, with a history of problem, who stays on the job, who lands at administrative leave, who lands on paid administrative leave for months and then quietly gets hired somewhere else. I mean, for the public and for a lot of the other officers, it feels like there's no accountability. And on top of that, the public is footing the bill. They're paying the freight on this thing. Here's the thing, in reality, discipline and termination in law enforcement can be complex. Look, we've got civil service rules, union contracts, local politics and the fear of lawsuits or actions with lawsuits. All of this is in the mix. But really, when you think about it, complexity doesn't change the bottom line. If someone repeatedly violates the public's trust, they shouldn't carry a badge or gun in that community, or any community for that matter. Comments like, "Great job, you know my thoughts on this subject," they might seem simple, but they tell me something really important, that we're building a community of people that care about getting this right. Whether you're in law enforcement, a student, or a citizen who just wants better policing, I really appreciate you being a part of this channel. None of this is quick. None of it fits into a nice little soundbite. But that's exactly why your comments on this platform matter. You're pushing this conversation beyond good cops and bad cops. You're asking what systems, what values, and what expectations actually produce good policing. I want to thank every one of you that commented on the last Gypsy Cops video. It's just phenomenal, the views and the comments. Whether you shared your experience, challenged the system, or talked about the deeper cultural issues involved here, I would thoroughly love to hear from you again. If you had to just pick one reform to put in place tomorrow, what would it be? A national registry, state licensing boards, stronger local leadership and culture? Or would it be something just completely different? Drop your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. If you're new here, I'm John, and this is Blue on Blue, where we take an honest look at law enforcement, all of the issues surrounding it, and the justice system from, I guess you could say, someone who's been inside and a chance to give a jaundiced eye to it and look at it from my own perspectives. And now I'm really fortunate enough to teach it or talk about it in the classroom. If you found this interesting, likable, hit the subscribe button and definitely share this with someone who cares about better policing. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. I'll see you on the next one.